Envase Technologies creates a suite of solutions that makes it easier to run your trucking business. For drivers and carriers, our solutions put control back in your hands with a TMS, capacity and storage marketplace, and rate management system. Optimize your operations with less administrative headaches and increase the value of your time spent on and off the clock. Envase Technologies, driving progress, delivering innovation. For more information, visit envasetechnologies.com. That's ENVASE Technologies.com.
Hey, supply chainers, wherever you are in the world, this is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain. I had to think about that one for a minute. Blended podcast and the founder of the Blended Pledge. And I'm here in Vegas for Manifest. Now, day one is already in the books, and we're going into day two, which is all about interviews for me today. I'm going to be on stage for a panel discussion, and I just can't wait to see everybody. But first, let's hear from our show sponsor. So are you ready to find your tribe? If you're struggling to find a supply chain community of like-minded professionals where you can level up, network, learn about best practices from experts in supply chain, professional development, and marketing, look no further. We created the Secret Society of Supply Chain to provide a safe space, a community for everyone in supply chain. We offer unique opportunities for everyone to connect and grow in our three distinct value-packed community: the supply chainers, women in supply chain, and the creative room. From the learn at your own pace, content-rich approach of the supply chainers to the empowering community-focused space of women in supply chain and the marketing mastermind of the creative room, we mean it when we say there's truly a place for everyone. So head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com to explore which community is right for you. All right, let's talk about what is happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So this week on the show, we have Karmit all the way from Israel for our Woman in Supply Chain series. And she talks all about her journey in corporate. And then she moved into startup life with the company that she has founded right now. Her journey is amazing. She's been able to travel the world, live in a variety of different places. That's what supply chain is all about. So go and listen to that episode. And it's interesting because last week, there was a whole bunch of discussions happening around women in supply chain on LinkedIn where people were like, we need more, we need more. Well, I encourage you to go and listen to this episode. And if you find something that resonates with you, go and repost it. Let's show the support for the women in supply chain that we are featuring. So go do that and let's put some of this stuff out there. All right, we've got some brand are coming up this month. So I think it's next week. We've got our first Relax Talks show that is happening, and they're going to be talking about pricing. So go and click the attend button, even if you cannot attend live, because we will send you the recording. We've also got Supply Chain Unfiltered with Christine Barnhart of Newlogy, and that one launches the week after as well. So I cannot wait because this is a great lineup. Then we want to say congratulations to Sonia. She is our follower of the month for January. We've just shipped out your mug, so keep an eye out for that. And remember to engage with all of our Let's Talk Supply Chain posts on our LinkedIn page, and you too can also be a follower of the month as well. Last but not least, I know I mentioned this before, but this is the Secret Society of Supply Chain. Now, next week, we are launching our first Women in Supply Chain virtual monthly meetup. Cannot wait. We are already got some seats filled for the second cohort that's going to be facilitated by Katie Date. And then the Creative Room, which is our marketing mastermind, we are launching that in March. So come and join us. Choose the community for you. We've got lots happening right now. All right, now it is time to bring up our guest for today, and that is my trade bestie, Audrey Ross. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm okay.
Yeah.
My hair's doing a thing.
How's Toronto?
Oh, it's sunny.
It is sunny?
Mm-hmm.
It's not even sunny here. Like, it's raining all week. I don't know what is happening, but the rain is following me around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Vegas, rainy. That's interesting.
It's very interesting. There's actually parking lots that are flooding right now. It's a little crazy. Little crazy. So for anybody who doesn't know who you are, let them know who you are and what you do.
Sure. All right. So I am Audrey Ross. I am an import and export compliance manager here in Toronto. My position is at award-winning business-to-business private labeling company IBG Orchard, and we specialize in beauty tools, bath accessories, and cosmetics. So that keeps me busy.
Amazing. Now I want to give a shout out to Prithvi. I know you said to share the link. They should be in the comments. Because you're on LinkedIn, the links come a little bit later. So just watch out for those, but we definitely have those links coming for you. All right, let's talk about the poll of the week. So the question that we asked everybody, what's the best career decision you've ever made? So we had 400 votes for this one. 35% of you said switching industries. Now, I don't know if that means you're switching out of supply chain or into supply chain, but 35% of you said that one. 29% of you said seeking further education. 28% of you said accepting a leadership role. And only 7% of you said starting my own business. I love that. It's a very small percentage because everybody's like, I don't know. What did you think when you saw this, Audrey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a good question. For me, I mean, I voted for seeking further education. I think that making that investment in sort of some outside expertise has been really valuable. And I think that resonated with quite a few people. And the comments were interesting too, like how people kind of had their stories about, what made them change, right? Like Bharath, it's like he kind of, people weren't sure how to react, right? And people sort of, he kind of had an experience where people kind of, not quite abandoned him, but kind of really, really left him alone with that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So, whereas I think, a lot of us have had maybe a more positive experience.
Yeah, I mean, the tides changed, right? He went from a buyer into sort of like a vendor position, and things really changed, right? There's the speaking engagements kind of peter out and all sorts of things. So that was really interesting to hear. I chose, obviously, start my own business because even though there are days where I am like, what am I doing? I think it was still the best thing that I could have done. And so I'm going to stick with that one. All right. So thanks to everybody who weighed in on the question of the week. We do ask you a question every single Wednesday morning across our LinkedIn. So go and be part of the conversation because we've got some great conversations that happen with those. So Audrey, why don't you give us a market update? Now, you were on the show just a couple of weeks ago. And I know
we might have lost Sarah. I think she was going to ask me about the Red Sea specifically, and sort of what's happening in the market. And I think if you're not already, you want to start following Lars Jensen. He's really got the best updates on this sort of issue, and we can see that another kind of official carrier, CGM, has announced that they're going to do the rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope. So instead of going through that Suez Canal, which really leaves only some of the smaller, sort of non-large cargo vessels moving through the Red Sea. And I think some of the, kind of niche markets, maybe that not all of us are involved in. So I ship consumer goods. And I mean, so far we're still getting kind of a similar expectation in that we're getting delay notices, so it's taking a longer transit time, and we're seeing slight increased costs on the container rates. I think what I mentioned a couple weeks ago was that it was really hard to distinguish between what was a sort of pre-Chinese New Year or pre-Lunar New Year cost increase planning, because we do every year see those costs increase throughout sort of that January period pre-Chinese New Year. And so it's been hard for me to distinguish what is specifically due to rerouting and what was just specifically due to capacity and volume, sort of intricacies around this annual supply chain holiday. So, oh, she's back.
I think it's working now. It's the Vegas Wi-Fi. Sorry, guys. But yes, I was going to ask you about the market update, and I think that's what you're giving everybody right now, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Keep going.
Yeah, I went ahead with that. Yeah, so it's for me, like I was saying, the costs still around the same. Haven't noticed anything very different from what is usually Chinese New Year. We are seeing those extended timelines. I think what the trick of it is now that we're seeing those extended timelines in that circuit, or in these loops, what does it look like to get the vessels back to the origin point? And then, it's Chinese New Year for a couple of weeks, right? So we'll see blank sailings. This week is sort of the last week vessels are leaving. Lunar New Year's on sort of the 9th and 10th. And then there's sort of a week to 2 weeks after that. So next week we'll see those blank sailings. 2 weeks from now, is everything going to be back from Europe and back to origin point? Who knows? So it'll be another round of sort of unpredictability and uncertainty around that 3rd and 4th week of February with what's available and what's getting out. So I think until we see that, it's really hard to say what the long-term effect will be into Q2 and Q3. If that sort of has normalized, or they've, carriers have worked out different routings, I think a lot of them are sort of changing what they're doing, and really making the decision if they have, sort of goods going to that Arabian Middle East area, to just circle those goods through there, and then really take the European, and sort of you lose that transshipment aspect that we had before, where goods would go into the Middle East, then go onwards. So still unpredictable, still not sure what's going to happen, but follow Lars Jensen because he has the scope on what's going on.
So I asked him to come on the show in a couple of weeks, actually.
Oh yeah,
he can't make it, so I'm gonna try.
He's probably traveling. He's probably.
I'm gonna try to pin him down in March.
Yeah. See if we can get him at TPM. Just kind of ask him like on the spot.
I should go live on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, you might see Lars on Instagram, because I do post a lot in my stories. Do you have any like hacks that you're kind of doing right now to sort of help with some of these disruptions that maybe you can share? Because I know that you are super organized and you are on top of all of these things. And I feel like even if you just have one tip of what's helping you through this, I think it might help some other people that are watching.
Consistent communication to the senior leadership, right? Like I have a colleague, we have a couple of offices worldwide, and so he's been doing he's in Europe, so he's giving European update, and then I'm kind of matching with sort of what we're seeing for our cargo that also goes into Europe, and so the just that communication, so that the teams understand that we can see what's going on and we're following the updates, and then giving our internal teams, we were very quick to give them like a buffed kind of increased rate that they could start using. And, maybe it makes us a little bit not, it's hard to balance what's competitive, what's not competitive, but that at least kind of gives us some protection because, we really found the 2021 rates increased so quickly, and we were a little behind on that one. So at least on this one, like maybe like we're quite ahead. I'm like, okay, let's just, for the next 3 quarters, expect that it's going to be a $5,000, $6,000 container, which it may shake out to not be, but at least we're not in that loss position that we were in 2021. Right. So there's things like that, right? And then making sure the teams are resetting the timing. Every single project, go through, reset that timing, because it's not going to be the sort of 5 to 6 weeks we've been expecting. Most of our teams plan for about 7 or 8 anyways, kind of just all in. But now it's kind of like, you got to plan for 10, which is rough. It's not fun in this business. Because of course, everything you want to be more accelerated. So, but we haven't had to use air shipping. Like we have a couple of customers who've been looking at potentially air shipping in some quantities. But again, I don't know that that's directly related to like an increased week or 2 weeks of transit. I think it's more they just have a good sale. So that's great.
Yeah. Well, and I think communication in a way that they understand why, right? It's happening. How it's going to affect what they do, I think is really key to that as well. And you do that very, very, very well. All right. I want to say hi to Mohammed, Michelle, Larry, Walid over on my personal LinkedIn as well. We are going to get into our articles. Now, when I dropped, it did drop my share screen. So I'm going to try to bring that back. And we're going to talk about this first article. So this is about packaging. Now, we haven't talked about packaging, I don't think, in a long time.
Yeah.
I actually recently just got an Amazon package. And again, it was a very big box for a very small item. And so things have not changed too much, I don't think, since we have talked about it. Now, if you have any packaging stories, please make sure you put those in the comments. We want to hear about those. But this one in particular is talking about snack and candy packaging in a time where, prices are really, really high. They're saying that they are going to put some more duties and tariffs onto foil, which actually comes in a lot of candy packaging and a lot of snack packaging, which means that snacks and candy are probably going to go up from a price perspective. It's a really interesting article. And one of the reasons why I brought it up was because we're talking about nearshoring. We're talking about bringing things closer together. And these are import duties, I believe, on the Far East, like bringing the foil in from the Far East, I believe, for some US manufacturing. What did you think of this one? And then I'll get into it a little bit more.
I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah,
It's
right.
fascinating because it's a little niche of the business. Like we sometimes use foil packaging as well. It's usually like a plastic combo for some of our products. But I mean, it's like their distinction and the position that the regulators aren't understanding the differences between the products. So they're trying to raise these tariffs and they're sort of doing blanket, like we're blanket aluminum, right? And these guys are like, well, wait a second, like there's this kind of aluminum and this aluminum for this use and this aluminum that goes into these snack packages that fill the entire American market. And so if you raise, we're in an inflationary period, people like have issues with paying for groceries, food bank use is up. And you're like, and now we have to add this cost in because you're sort of doing this blanket treatment to the aluminum field is apparently very vast and dynamic. So I thought it was interesting how they've, one, they're positioning themselves, but two, that there's so many things happening there.
Well, and I also thought, for people maybe not in supply chain or maybe not in this part of supply chain, I thought it was interesting how this one layer of packaging can actually bring ripple effects, right? So it actually goes into the design of the packaging and then the sourcing of the materials. And so if you're going to change one thing, there are so many other things that is going to affect. And they're also talking about moving packaging to Canada and Mexico to be able to avoid some of these duties. And it's interesting because I've been talking to a couple of news outlets here. And they're talking about reporting on nearshoring to South America as well. So this is a really big topic. And I think the next thing to really think about is they're looking at cans now. So next up is canned goods. So if you think they're going to stop at snacks and candy, no, their next one is to look at canned goods and where that's being manufactured and where we're importing some of those raw materials as well. I think I hear a bit of an echo. So for anybody out there, I apologize. I don't know where that's coming from, but I don't know if you can hear it, but I can definitely hear it.
So I think too, the key piece around the regulation as well was that, a lot of duties and tariffs, a lot of the history of duties and tariffs is around protecting domestic industry. And I think one of the main points that this association is making is that there is no domestic industry. You're not protecting a domestic industry because there is no domestic industry. And we run into this and when you look at sort of other duty categories as well. Like either you're too late because the domestic industry has already been affected and eradicated, or you're trying, like you're not really looking at the nuance of what's happening. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about packaging design, which they get into. It's very, you've got to research it. It's for food quality goods, right? So it's not like you can put anything around your cookies or your Rice Krispie squares. Like it is tested, it is investigated, it is researched. Like this is where they're at. where they're like, the aluminum foil in this grade and this type is the current best market. And when if they increase these tariffs rapidly, it means that either like, are they going to immediately rush to just try and innovate the next thing? Probably a group is going to try to do that, but that's an accelerated sort of a push onto the market that is already they know that like, okay, maybe we could find something more environmentally friendly, but there's a pace to that. And this will either sort of accelerate that pace and potentially negatively, or those costs are directly going to the consumer. Like this idea that factories and manufacturers outside of your home country pay the tariff. They do not. We pass it on to the direct consumer. So
right. Yeah, that's such a great point. And you're right. I mean, it's there to protect. But if we don't have it, what are we doing and why are we increasing costs? All right, let's get to our next article. So this isn't really an article. It was a post by Lee Courtney that I really liked because this particular picture here, there we go. I'm going to expand on that, talks about digital transformation. Now we talk about digital transformation in supply chain all the time. I think I even had a conversation with somebody the other day that we are still not okay with our data. Yeah. And I can't believe that I'm talking about this still in 2024, because I believe that I was talking about this when we started the podcast back in 2016.
6 years ago.
But these are some interesting stats. So incomplete data in our industry costs $3.1 trillion. Like, that is a lot of money. And what are we doing that we have incomplete data still in 2024? 6% of supply chain companies, only 6% have full visibility of their supply chain. 75%, go ahead.
No, I believe that. Like, yes.
75% exchange data between 2 and 5 businesses. Now, I talk about this on the show all the time with Excel. You know, we're downloading, we're uploading, we're downloading, we're uploading, right? Because we've just got so many different business units that need different things, and we are missing data. That's where that $3.1 trillion comes from. $140 billion in invoice disputes. Now, I have a theory that I think this is probably from demurrage and detention, or at least a part of it is from demurrage and detention, because that was something that we disputed all the time when I was in logistics. And then 50% of B2B payments are still being made by check, which is crazy. A little bit crazy. So now I want to turn this over to you, Audrey, because you're in it, right?
Yeah.
You have a supply chain team. You're looking at some of these things. You're looking at technology. Like, does this equate? Is this something that you're resonating with and kind of like trying to navigate?
I mean, I'm so in it, Sarah, that this morning I was in an invoice dispute because like my packing list doesn't match my delivery note, doesn't match what the warehouse has received, and it's all manual, right? Like it's, you know, some of it might have been generated out of an ERP, but you know, so it's I feel the pain. And I think too, like we all want to have this like sort of glamorous solution, you know, and it's sort of the same thing I'm dealing with coming into 24. We want to have a glamorous, easy, like, oh, the robots will fix it. The robots can't fix it if we don't have standardization. The robots can't fix it if we're not having like the absolute basic foundations of like a good data practice, right? Which is being consistent with how you're entering the information. If we all use a different date format, right? Like we work a lot with Europe, we work a lot with Americans. You're like, it's a totally different date format. That right there, you're like, why haven't we gone to the universal, which is the year, the month, the day? Why haven't we agreed to this? That's what would solve like a lot of issues. But it's like, oh, we'll get like an AI to, you know, and you're like, that's probably not. And I think it's, you know, all of us want that sort of easy fix for humans, but when it comes down to it, it's going to be that boring, like, you know, I mean, someone like, you know, our friend Susan Walsh, who does the data cleanup, like that's the kind of thing, like, I'm sure like she makes it seem very glamorous, but it's like, it's very, you know, specific, detailed, quantifiable, standardized, detailed, right? Like that's what you need to get to in order to be able to maximize like these exciting and sort of advantageous tools. But yeah, the industry, you know, no one wants to admit it, right? There's a boring, unglamorous piece to it that none of us want to do.
I mean, you're saying supply chain isn't sexy? I mean,
It's
I've
so
been trying to say this for 6 years. No.
it is. There's the
So
firefighting adventure part, to be sure, but like when you come to like, how can I make my life easier, or how can I have less time on like invoice corrections and more time for like glamorous containers falling off of a vessel? It's the boring, like nitpicky data point.
So what do you think about these invoice disputes? Where do you think they're coming from? Like, where do you have the most? Because
I mean, it's still there's like a manual piece to it. So you could have typos. There's still
That's
like,
true.
again, a lot of lack of standardization. So when you look at, I mean, specifically in freight, you've got a bill of lading that says packages. An airway bill will say packages. Is that pallets or boxes? Because most of us think of packages as boxes, but they'll accept 8 pallets as packages. So then when you move that through, what's the packing list say? It says 8 pallets, but it also says like 600 cartons. Then when you bill, you're billing 10,000 units.
Right.
You know, you can see where some of the carry through just, you know, starts to get off track,
It's
right?
true.
Like,
yeah. And going back to your robot comment, I just want to let everybody know, I think next week I have Ashley Yentz on the show and we're talking about robot wranglers. So you're definitely going to want to tune in for that one because that one's a little bit funny. All right. So our last article, because we've got a couple of minutes on this. Now you might be wondering, so this is about selling your lost luggage. So if you've ever lost luggage, I think 3% of bags are lost or misdirected. And if they're still there after 90 days, they do get sold. So this is a fascinating article about things that people have lost. Like, it's a little bit crazy what people have lost. So go and read it. But like a suit of armor, I think it was, and then a camera with NASA space shuttle photographs. Like, I was thinking about you, Audrey, for that one.
Yeah.
I was like, if she found that one would be gold. But they store it in a 50,000 square foot warehouse.
Yeah.
And they put all the stuff out. Everybody comes in and people travel from all over the world. It's crazy. It's a really great article. But the reason why I bring this up is because when I saw this, it started making me think about when I was in logistics and how many times I made trips to the airline warehouse when we were allowed in there. I mean, we're not allowed in there anymore, to find lost cargo. And so I went down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out how much, because lost luggage is about 2.1 billion, but that costs the airline. But I was like, how much does it cost for lost cargo? And I cannot find it anywhere. So Larry, if you're out there, somebody out there, you can find this stat, send it to me because I'm super interested, because cargo is lost from the airlines all the time, or it used to be, at least in my.
Or they say it is.
Right? So we're talking about lost luggage, but there's also this lost cargo component. And that also goes into the abyss of warehouses or gets misdirected or things like that. And I want to know what happens to that cargo. What did you think of this article?
This article made me so mad. It's so aggravating. Like, okay, one, it's cool, like the little entrepreneurial story, right? Like that. Okay, I get that. The guy, you know, goes in the history of how this guy started this business and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if you're in Canada and you know anything about Air Canada, they've had a spell of like losing the luggage. And I think the airline just sort of is like, oh, instead of just hiring a couple people to like look through the luggage or let people come in and like do the same thing, like wander through and claim their baggage. No, they just is like, it's lost. We can't find it. We don't know where it is. We don't know where it is. We don't know where. Oh, now we've sold it.
I mean, there are two sides to every story,
right? Like there's like,
I don't know if that's the exact
entrepreneur thing. I get, yeah, like it's difficult to manage all this luggage, except it's your job and you committed to manage all this luggage.
Well, they do have an app now. So I actually got.
I mean, if you have to have everybody air tag their own bag because you're so unreliable.
No, but so I did get notification on the way out to Vegas that my baggage had been loaded onto the plane.
Yeah, well, they had to do that.
So they're doing that now because it's costing
last year was
$2.1 billion.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I mean, I feel a little bad for them, but I also don't feel bad for them because they committed to carry you and your things.
Mm-hmm. It's the same with cargo too. So I'm interested to find out
Yeah.
what the stats are on cargo.
Yeah,
because
Simon K and I can tell you about lost stuff at airport warehouses. Like, is it lost? Oh no, it's just over here, but it wasn't labeled with the Post-it that you guys normally use. I don't know.
I don't know. So anyways, it is a big issue. I'd want to look up the stats if anybody has this. But if you've lost any luggage, go and read this article because it's fascinating from a logistics perspective. And it kind of makes your mind wander as to what's happening from a cargo perspective. So I just want to let everybody know where I'm going to be. So in March 21st, we are partnering with Supply Chain Brain on a webinar with Reveal. So go and check that out. The registration link will be on that post that we've just put a link to. A manifest, I'm here right now. And then Audrey and I are both going to be at TPM March 3rd through 5th. I'm going to be on stage for a fireside chat with $1 Million Baby. And I'm going to be asking questions like, what do you expect from a partner to have from a technology perspective? We are going to dive deep into the questions that you want to know about. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Audrey, thanks for taking over when my Wi-Fi didn't work. And thanks for joining me, my trade bestie. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.